I've owned this GT6 for more than half my life, and there are numerous ways in which this car has let me down and left me stranded at the side of the road. One of the special ways, and always when I was picking somebody up, was the starter motor just not working. Just like this. Here was my problem. The Lucas starter motor. Well, maybe sometimes a battery, sometimes a starter, sometimes bad wiring, sometimes fuel, sometimes a pipe. This an Isuzu Trooper starter, which has the drive at the side of a gear, which then winds it round, which means it uses less current and creates more torque. Hopefully all my problems will be solved. Take it off to a cross flat 9/16, jiggle it about. Now what you really want to do is take off the power cable before you start jiggling it about, because it won't come out. And strangely enough, for my starter motor, it was a 10mm spanner. So hopefully I will never use that 10mm spanner on my car again. Not that I don't like metric, I just like it to be consistent and only have to take 3 spanners with me. Taking off the spacer gives me just enough room to wiggle the thing out. The Lucas starter motor drives backwards to engage with the flywheel. The new Isuzu style starter drives outwards to engage with the flywheel. And they drive out and get to different points. Also, the Isuzu has a relay built in, so it should have permanent power. But I'm going to wire it up in the same way as the Lucas and have the power switch on from the relay on the car and also switch the relay on the new starter. Now this is the spacer. Now this is the thing that's going to save me, because what I can do is get a new spacer that has a different width to make the gears mesh properly. On the Isuzu, it's a 7/16 spanner, so happy days all round. Having taken off the power lead from the Lucas, what I should have done is put it onto the new starter before fitting, because it is right round the back next to the engine. The connector needed a little bit of reaming out. The battery, which isn't that old, showing 13 volts when it's on charge. If you take the charge off, it drops like a stone. So it's pretty rough anyway. But even with about 5 minutes charge, let's see what the new starter motor sounds like. First off, little reference for the diagram, because I managed to pull off the ignition line. Pop that one back on there. It's as loose as anything. Come on then.
Carpets I meant to buy.
How about that? It turns the engine.
It's like starting an aeroplane.
And with a little bit more charge. Turns the engine again. Flick on the fuel, makes no difference. I think that was already done. And don't forget the choke.
One man always forget the choke.
Yeah, that's not too bad. It turns. I'll leave it for a few minutes to charge up a bit more. And this time, having discharged it a little bit, putting the charger on doesn't just shoot up to 13 volts. It slowly creeps up, which makes me think that's more like a battery taking a charge. Six-cylinder engine, I think probably running on 3 or 4 there. They sound more like I could plough a field with it. That's made me a bit happier. Of course, it won't start 2 times over. Bit of choke. Bit more choke.
How strange.
A little bit more charge.
That's the weirdest sound ever.
Have a look at the man. Right, so yeah, okay. Actual maintenance may be required. Battery's dropped down to about 10 volts. 10 volts, but it still turns my engine.
Now, here we are.
There we go, 5 minutes later. But hey, it's time for actual maintenance. So first off, check the timing.
Very small space.
Number 1 is firing.
He is on the mark, to be honest. Not very far off. Did that right for a second.
There it is, doing its best to stop. Bravely, I have unplugged a spark plug and found it made absolutely no difference whatsoever to the running of the engine. So number 6 clearly was not helping. Very unbravely, I switched the engine off first before I put it back on again. So there's number 2, also firing. Doesn't really tell me anything more, unless I go through all 6. And I think I'm tired at this point. And if you have a little feel of the exhaust, it's not smooth, it's a bit bitty.
Still too even.
Fine bit of lino there. Don't know why I've kept it. And is it blowing? I don't think it's blowing. That was last year's MOT. There's a natty bit of tape on that.
Give me a couple of days, spark plugs maybe. Let's clean them up next.
So here comes a proper job. Going to clean the spark plugs. Actually, first off, I'm going to have a look at them. but
So we've got the
I
battery.
think the result will be cleaning. And the battery seems to be holding the charge better. So here we go. Goodbye, Knuckles. There you go, if you can see that. It's a bit black and a bit wet. Here's a little sand blaster just for spark plugs. Now it's all brown. I didn't actually go checking the gap, but yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves with how good a mechanic we are. So did all the others, put them all back in, and hey presto, nice and smooth. There's a bit of regular maintenance. Hazard warning light needs about 30 flicks every year for the MOT, and then all of a sudden it starts working again. And we're just getting a little tiny bit of temperature coming up into the car.
About 600. Straight on.
A bit more even. An awful lot of clack came out there. So there it is, there's the new starter. Problem is, the steering column almost touches it. It's very, very close. And I've used the old spacer. Now I've painted the gear on the end of the new starter. So hopefully, with all that starting, I should be able to see where the paint has been chipped off, how much I have to adjust the spacer to put the cog in a better contact. So 9/16, take it off again. So out he comes. Let's power him up. Out he pops. Now then, I don't know if you can see it as well as I can, but it's got about 3mm of grip. And I think I need at least 8. I don't want to get that large casting piece in the way of the flywheel. So this spacer, which is about 12mm thick, needs to come down to about 7. You can see there's a little ridge on the flywheel which would get in the way if I went too far. I even tried fitting it in without the spacer, but it won't go. So there's the old one winding in, and there's the new one that winds out, and you can see the spacer on the old one. See how far I have to get. So I had a new piece made. I had a new spacer made. And there it is. So there's the old one on the old starter. I made a new one rather than trim mine down because I didn't want to ruin the part. One day somebody might want it back on. So there's the new one. Both made of aluminium. Look at me, some nice new gloves. I recommend gloves. Now I've got some. It's a very tight fit, and there's a casting on the engine that gets right in the way if you say it's okay if it's slightly larger. Then you have to go and rub it down. But once you've done that, it fits like a glove. Now the starter motor's in and it works fine. The spacer is now down to 7mm, but the trouble is it's still far too close to the steering column. But I'll just have to see how it goes. Power back on at the solenoid. Once again I knock out the ignition. There's my shampoo bottle back in. Now then, this is a week later, so don't expect it to start straight away.
Hey, back to this position. Let's go. Choke is off.
or second time.
It ain't ever.
Always a good idea, I think, to forget the choke for about 2 goes, because then at least oil runs all around the engine before it starts. There we go, he's off again. And I play safe cracker with the choke to try and keep it going, but no. Runs away at 2,000 revs at one point, tiniest touch, and then it stalls. Ah, there we go, tick over. So there we have it, folks. That's changing a starter motor on a Triumph GT6, and the benefits of it are that the car starts.